This is another one of those desperately sad cases where a damp proofing company, in this case Tapco, has gone to a property during the sales transaction and said there's rising damp and that it will require 17,000 to fix. In fact, I went around the property and there was hardly any damp at all. I'll show you the readings shortly, but the highest reading that there was using the protimeter surface conductance, which is the method that they used, the highest meter reading there was 22, where below 20 is dry, between about 20 and 30 is marginally damp, and above that is damp. But they're like so many damp proofing companies, they say that any of the dampness at the base of a wall is caused by rising damp, yet they provide no proof. All water will cause high damp meter readings, and all water will be pulled down by gravity to the base of the wall. So you're far more likely to have damp at the base of the wall than anywhere else, in particular condensation, because the ground is colder. So not only do you have the effect of dampness being drawn down by gravity, but the wall is colder, and therefore you're going to get more condensation at the base of the wall. If you look at 2 reports back, you'll see how it builds up over time, how condensation builds up over time. But that's not rising damp. You could call it piling damp if you want to. It's not rising damp. Rising damp comes from groundwater. That's the water under the water table. I'll show you a little bit later on, but in most cities, the groundwater is pumped out, not least because it's used for obviously you don't want to flood the underground systems, the parking, but actually it's also used for heating, and it's pumped out from London. It's pumped out from Stevenage down to Croydon to a level of about 70 meters below the ground. So way, way, way below ground level, never going to be anywhere near. So there should be no damp proofing companies in London, unless they're falsifying things. And I think you've got every right to speak to trading standards about it. I think you've got every right to talk to their industrial body, the PCA, which is obviously originates as part of the chemical damp proofing industry, or you may not know that, but it does. And so I went round to every area, and you'll see I've replicated the readings. I've tested all the walls. There's a marginally damp area at the back by the conservatory, and by the sockets to the front. There's also a down pipe that should be piped away, but that's actually the only defect in the property, in my opinion. You can see where near the conservatory, but that's because the bathroom has no extractor fan and the kitchen has no extractor fan, and the conservatory isn't heated. So very, very simple solution. I would encourage you to install extractor fans. I think most modern living requires it, but you can use dehumidifiers. The key thing to do is keep the dew point below the outside temperature at all times, and you can see where I recommend that. But yes, Tapco, definitely a company that you should think about reporting to the standards body, trading standards. So now, whenever I go on surveys, I will always look at the groundwater in the area beforehand. I know it's pumped out in London, but there's still theoretically going to be groundwater, and in the future they may stop pumping it out. It seems unlikely, but you'll see that there's no risk of groundwater in your area. You don't have groundwater bearing rocks. You do have a marginal risk of flooding. It's between 1% and 3%. Personally, I wouldn't worry about that. again, I think it's probably overstated, but that's so. See what I say during the survey. You'll see that I use a damp meter reading. It's a protimeter I use in this case. I normally will use a cheaper version that I encourage all home owners to get. They're not calibrated, whereas the protimeter is calibrated. But setting that aside, it's oversensitive, perhaps because it was developed by companies trying to identify dampness at the base of walls. But in conductance, it's just the surface. And for me, below 30% is likely to be damp. But I will tend to use the radio wave version. It's much more accurate and much more useful. And you use it for profiling damp. That's what's causing the damp there. It's not, I mean, I would say you've got two things going on. So there is dampness at the base of the wall by the electrical socket and next to the radiator.
Have you got the radiators on? Have they been off?
But radiators get cold and cause increased risk of condensation.
Because you get the pipes going underground into the colder subfloor and then extract the heat, so you get a zone of heat loss around the radiators.
Yeah.
And then likewise with the electricity on the electrical wiring, you get the heat loss because you've got the sockets removing part of the wall, so there's heat loss there, and also the wires going into the subfloor.
Yeah.
So that's what will be causing that. Probably made worse by the outside drain going in, but it's not penetrating all the way through. You'll be a brown stain. If you look at the last report, you'll see what a brown stain from penetrating damp looks like, because it's quite clear. So they have a mixture in that property.
You should have done that beforehand, Simon. I do apologise.
Well, it's the television, is it? Yeah. Oh, right. Ah, so you've got... Smells of mould, actually. Oh, it's dry. But it is summertime. So it's dry.
So below 300 is dry, even if it's showing it as red.
It's dry. It's dry. Oh, here's the bath. Oh, okay. So the bath, there was a leak here, but it's been solved a long time ago. When was the leak solved in the bathroom?
What's that?
When was the leak solved in the bathroom? 2 years ago?
2020.
4 years ago, so it will have dried out a long time ago.
Yeah.
You can see condensation dribble marks down there. That will be because you get heat loss around the metal. It's condensation. Oh, hello.
You're going to be on video, Pup. I think winter before last I did have the little oil.
So that's really the dampest area, and that's because it's next to the cold conservatory, and you've got the vapour from the bathroom and the kitchen. No extractor fans.
That's the downpipe.
And the downpipe outside is going straight into the soil next to the wall. Also notice that the wall has been cut back. Some surveyors recommend this, but the downside of it is it increases the heat loss at the base of the wall, so it increases the risk of rising damp-like symptoms, i.e. condensation.
Oh yeah, that feels okay.
Shield, I think, on it.
Well, it might be weather shield on the final coat, but I think this is a type of coating that people are put on.
So there's no evidence of penetrating damp. You'd have a brown stain on the inside. Look at some other reports. There are no obvious signs of cracking. Right, so this is the groundwater in London. This is an example borehole. I think it's 44 meters down. So way below where houses are. This is an illustration to just demonstrate how deep the groundwater is in cities. They pump it out. It's used for lots of different things, not least for heating systems. In London, Thames Water hire out licenses, and in fact, if they take out more water, then they're bound to actually pay the licensees money, which actually happened to a cousin of mine who uses it for a large building, for heating a large building. So basically, the risk of groundwater in this property is 0. So the risk of rising damp is 0. However, if a damp proofing company wants to demonstrate that there is genuine rising damp, all they need to do is drill down by 1 meter, and if they put a tube in the ground and they find that there's water in the base of the tube, then it is possible that they have rising damp. But
you should first check that there are no drains or cables in the vicinity. Drill down by 1 meter. If there's any dampness at the base of and put a tube down. If there's any water that collects in the base of the tube, then you may have rising damp, but you have to have an even amount on all 4 sides. If it's higher on one side than another side, it's quite possible, even probable, that you've got a leaking drain, and that could mean that the subsidence. So damp proofing, hiding the dampness would be a bad thing in that situation, and you have to be careful. You have to find the leaking drain and fix it. A lot of these drains are 100 years old, and over time they may have moved, or a tree may have, the roots of a tree may have entered through the drain and broken the drain. So be very careful. You could end up with subsidence. You could be hiding subsidence. You could be hiding a potential cause of rot, such as dry rot, and you may not be insured against it. So damp proofing could reduce the value of your property.